Hello and welcome. This is M from Narcissistic Abuse Rehab. Our topic for today is death by coercive control, the Kellie Sutton story. I chose this topic because this is a landmark coercive control case in the UK. It's important for everyone to learn the signs of coercive control. Learning these signs may help you save yourself or someone you care about. We're building this channel for you to help you on your recovery journey through awareness, empowerment, and healing. Please support this channel by hitting the like button and subscribing, and share this video with friends who need to hear this message. So let's dive into our topic. Kellie Sutton was a 30-year-old mother of 3 who succumbed to coercive control by her abusive partner. Just 5 months into the relationship, Kellie took her own life. The UK coercive control law came into force in 2015. I put a link for you below so you can check it out. It concerns intimate or family relationships where controlling behavior by the perpetrator is used repeatedly or continuously and has a substantial adverse effect on the victim's day-to-day activities. Kellie's abuser waged a campaign of psychological abuse against her. She went from being a fun-loving, outgoing person to feeling worthless. Her abuser shattered her self-esteem. To those who knew Kellie and her partner, the relationship looked fine on the surface. No one would have guessed that there was horrific abuse taking place behind closed doors. Every target of narcissistic abuse and coercive control should study this case to learn what the red flags are, and all of us, should call our government representatives and demand coercive control legislation. Coercive control is torture. Kellie Sutton was tortured and driven to death by her partner. So how did this happen? Friends and family describe Kellie Sutton as someone who didn't have a bad bone in her body. They say that Kellie was kind and affectionate and went out of her way to help others. In other words, Kellie Sutton was a loving, generous, empathetic person. An empath is someone with a great capacity to experience the emotions of others through sensitivity, intuition, and awareness. In almost every other context, these are all positive personality traits, but to narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths, they are like blood and the water is to a shark. I want to emphasize that Kellie did absolutely nothing to deserve the suffering inflicted on her at the hands of her abuser. I think it's important to make others aware of the vulnerabilities abusers use to cause harm and prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future. Antisocial personality types feed on the positive energy and generosity of empathetic people while slowly and methodically taking them mentally hostage through coercive control. This is sport for these personality types. So how are they able to do this? According to clinical psychologist Dr. Abdul Saad, the blind spot that makes empathetic individuals vulnerable to narcissists is a sense of pride that manifests as self-deception. Pride in the form of a belief that the empathetic individual has the capacity to comfort, uplift, and transform others. Empaths believe they have the ability to fix anyone and anything through a love that conquers all. Dr. Saad explains that narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths exploit the empath's pride in their ability and desire to change narcissists from destructive, arrogant egocentrics into authentic, caring people. This pride is the bait narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths use in the traps they set to bring about the downfall of empathetic individuals. I put a link for you to Dr. Saad down below. Empathetic individuals are conscientious and often may have been parentified during childhood. Narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths are always looking for someone to take care of them, to be a sort of parent. So once again, a quality that is otherwise positive, like conscientiousness, can be turned against an empathetic individual by a disordered one. Kellie Sutton did nothing wrong. Nothing that happened to her was her fault. She fell in love with a cruel, opportunistic abuser who used her love and trust to do terrible harm to her life. Now let's look at the tactics of coercive control or psychological torture that Kellie's abuser used to drive her to take her own life. Red flag number 1, love bombing. Kellie Sutton met her abuser, an ex-soldier, in March 2017 at her local pub. She'd been single for 2 years. Family and friends described her abuser as charming. Her abuser ingratiated himself into Kellie's life by doing chores like home repair and going to the store to buy groceries for her. Soon, Kellie began to depend on him. Love bombing is a tactic used by abusers to hook their targets into the cycle of abuse through deceptive demonstrations of positive attention and feigning friendship, affection, and generosity. Kellie's friend, Alexia Spathis, disliked her abuser immediately. Alexia recalled, "He moved in within weeks and started doing things around the house and buying things to make Kellie feel like she relied on him. She was a single mom with 3 kids, and he must have sensed she was vulnerable. I told her to stay away from him because he seemed controlling," end quote. During the love bombing phase of an abusive relationship, the antagonist or abusive partner mines a wealth of data from the target by asking countless questions. The abuser uses the information they've gathered to craft a false persona that mirrors the target's traits and qualities in order to trick the target into bonding with them. The target is placed on a pedestal by the abuser. They are given excessive praise and their needs are catered to. The target is showered with long, pleasant visits, text messages, emails, phone calls, and messages on social media. The main tell during the love bombing phase of a relationship is that the abuser seems too good to be true. Red flag number 2, enforcement of trivial demands. The second tactic of power and control used by Kellie's abuser manifested in mind games. Slowly, the abuser begins to implement an unwritten rule book. They begin by making small, insidious demands on their target that become more and more extraordinary over time. To continue and to justify the punishments, the abuser constantly changes the rules. This is how they dominate the target and establish their control over them. Now, Kellie's abuser implemented a set of rules about her appearance. Friends and family noticed that Kellie, a beauty therapist, suddenly stopped using makeup and changed the way she dressed. Her abuser had targeted her sense of self, her identity. The external changes were an outward sign of the extent of the influence her abuser had over Kellie's mind. Kellie was slowly being bullied into mental bondage. Red flag number 3, distortion. In order to seize control of the target's perception, abusers often monopolize their time in order to influence how they see the world and what they think. The target is blamed for the abuse, and the abuser uses other people under his influence. Sometimes this can even be friends or family members of the target. To reinforce the abuser's views, Kellie's abuser dominated her time and space. Kellie was made to accompany her abuser to his job, and she'd happened to secure that job for him through her brother. Now, friends and family interpreted this as them being inseparable. During distortion, the abuser burns hot then cold. Their behavior is unpredictable, and the target experiences high levels of anxiety. Kellie confided in her mother that her abuser was becoming increasingly jealous, but never specified how this played out. The dread resulting from the coercive control intimidates most targets into silence. Red flag number 4, isolation. Isolation is a coercive control tactic that involves cutting off the target's support system so that they have no one to turn to, and the abuser becomes the main influence in their lives. Prior to meeting her abuser, Kellie and her mother, Pamela Taylor, spoke every day. They lived on the same street. However, soon after Kellie took up with her abuser, her mother heard less and less from her. Kellie's father, Ian Sutton, noticed that Kellie stopped going out and became withdrawn. Yet on the surface, they seemed like a normal couple. Her abuser wore a friendly mask and behaved well in front of family and guests. Kellie's suffering took place behind closed doors. She sent the following messages to her friend on WhatsApp. Quote, Don't come over today. Steve wants to do something. Apparently punch my head in like he said. He's not happy I invited you over, so now I gotta pay the consequences. It's okay. I'm used to it now." End quote. She told another friend in August that she wasn't allowed to speak to her and felt imprisoned in her own home. Red flag number 5, exhaustion/induced debility. Kellie's abuser often accused her of being unfaithful. This is a narcissistic abuse tactic called projection. For more on this, check out my video, Projection is the Narcissist's Autobiography. By now, Kellie was in the devaluation stage of the cycle of abuse and was being antagonized by her abusive partner who called her names. He physically dominated her, pinning Kellie to the floor and choking her. Abusers use strangulation to exert power and control over their targets. And please take note, strangulation is a major red flag and a strong predictor of homicide. For more on this, check out the links below. Kellie told a family member about the incident. She said her abuser did it as a punishment because she'd gone out and the abuser didn't know where she was. She sent the following texts to her abuser, quote, "I'm tired of this shit prisoner life. All you are going to do is moan and beat me all afternoon." End quote. On June 3rd, medical records show that Kellie was treated for a 3-centimeter wound to the top of her head. She had intended to visit her middle child at the child's paternal grandparents when her abuser attacked her. Medical records show she went to the emergency room for treatment. Her mother said, "She told us they were play fighting and she banged her head." Broken down through coercive control, Kellie was so compliant with her abuser that she defended his abuse and covered up for him. On July 6, the police went to her home. When neighbors reported the couple were arguing loudly, Kellie was trying to fight back. By August, Kellie was desperately trying to end the relationship. Red flag number 7, humiliation/degradation. The abuser was now openly possessive, jealous, and controlling of Kellie behind closed doors. The abuser would search Kellie's bedroom for evidence of infidelity. The abuser degraded and humiliated Kellie by sniffing her underwear for proof that she'd been unfaithful and using slurs about her gender and sexuality. Now that Kellie's abuser had completely intimidated and frightened her, they took possession of her bank card, which she'd given to them to do the shopping in the love bombing stage. Her abuser was controlling her finances. Red flag number 8, callousness, schadenfreude, sadism. On the 23rd of August 2017, Kellie was anxious and in a state of deep despair. She texted her abuser that she was going to kill herself. Her abuser responded by texting her back, quote, "Do everyone a favor and go ahead and do it." End quote. When Kellie didn't answer this text, her abuser rushed to the house and found that Kellie had hung herself. They deleted the incriminating messages from their phone and from Kellie's. She was rushed to the intensive care unit, where she was comatose. Kellie's family and friends were in shock. The Kellie they had known had loved life and her children. This was completely out of character for her. As Kellie was kept alive by a life support machine, her mother was shocked to hear that from the abuser's friends that he was down at the pub joking about where he was going to live now that Kellie was dying. 3 days after Kellie hung herself, her family was told that she was brain dead, and they made the painful decision to switch off life support and let Kellie die. At that time, they didn't understand the extent of the abuse she'd suffered at the hands of her partner. After her death, her abuser's sick displays of callousness, schadenfreude, and sadism were so alarming that one of his friends filed a police report. Had this man not contacted law enforcement, Kellie's abuser would never have been caught. The man told the police of a phone conversation he'd had with Kellie's abuser early in the summer. After he'd split Kellie's head open, the man also reported that her abuser had called him, making jokes and laughing about her suicide. He also told the police that her abuser had been bragging that he'd already met a new woman. Projection is a narcissist's autobiography. Based on the man's report, the police arrested Kellie's abuser, and he was charged with controlling or coercive behavior in an intimate relationship, assault by beating, and assault occasioning actual bodily harm. At the trial, it was revealed that Kellie's abuser was abusing cocaine and alcohol. For more on this topic, please watch my video, The Narcissist and Drugs. In his ruling, Judge Philip Gray told Kellie's abuser that his behavior was, quote, domineering and grossly humiliating. The judge said, quote, Kellie Sutton had the great misfortune to meet you. You inveigled your way into her affections and her house, and you then sought to dominate and control her. You treated her as a meal ticket that was yours to control. You beat her, and you ground her down, and you broke her spirit. It is clear you saw her as a passport to a more comfortable life. We've heard from witnesses she withdrew from the world when you moved into her house. You gave her plenty of cause to be scared of you. Your behavior drove Kellie Sutton to hang herself that morning. End quote. Kellie's father reported that her abuser showed no remorse at all in court. He was given the maximum sentence of 4 years and 3 months. However, he is due for early release in 2020 after serving just 2 years. The judge went a step further and imposed a criminal behavior order lasting 10 years. Kellie's mother said, I didn't know how to help. She said abusers like this bulldoze their victims into silence. Her mother also said, quote, I beg of you, if your partner is making you feel like Kellie's did in her final months, please ask for help. It just might save your life. End quote. About coercive control, Kellie's brother Stephen, who had helped her abuser get the delivery job, said, quote, I never knew it existed until this happened. I want victims to know that there is help out there. The law is on your side. End quote. If you are listening to this message, please learn to pay attention to the red flags of a coercive controller. And please share this message on your social media so that people can learn what signs to watch out for to evade this kind of invisible abuse. Coercive control is a form of mental slavery used to torture big-hearted, generous souls by sadistic opportunists. That's all I have for you today. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to help us grow. Be good to yourself, and we'll talk again soon.